Hi, welcome to the Toilet Paper Diaries. On today's episode, we're going to be sharing with you an influencer blueprint that's going to be perfect for a post-COVID world. Basically, we're going to show you how to get people lining up to do business with you all around the block and all around the world. All that's coming up for you on the Toilet Paper Diaries.
Dave, we are now in episode 79, and possibly it's a good idea if you actually just let the audience know and why we are doing this episode specifically.
Well, this episode is because we've had to reinvent ourselves, which you've had to do anyway. But basically, our business model of being a speaker is you put your business out there on the internet. You say, here I am. This is what I do. What do you need me for? People find you, they select you. You go along, you do the gig, you get paid, happy days. But what do you do if there are no gigs? What do you do if the people who are trying to book you don't know where their clients are anymore? You have to shuffle, reinvent, and decide where you need to be, and of course, who's going to hire you. And sometimes that means reinventing the shape of the wheel, because normally it's round, but in a post-COVID pandemic world, it could be any shape. And that's what we're going to be covering today, what shape that wheel should really be.
This year has been really weird. I mean, we started the year, we went to India and we were there in Dubai. We were doing some gigs and we were training speakers to get ready. Basically, our entire year was set up into already all sorts of activities. My agenda was full. And from one day to the other, suddenly, all my events were canceled. And we had to figure out exactly what on earth to do. So if you're a speaker, if you're a trainer, if you are a coach, if you're an influencer, if you are a business owner, this is going to be a very important episode for you to watch, because I'm sure that your story, it's very similar to ours. The pandemic completely unexpectedly changed us. and we're still here.
It's not just speakers, Ernesto, even though we specifically look at small businesses and speakers, it's almost every single industry you can think of has had to alter its business model and reinvent itself. Some have been more successful than others, but the bottom line is it doesn't matter which business you're in, you need to create a need, you need to create an influence, and you've got to have people who are now looking for you and what your new offer is. If you try and do stuff the old way, it's just not going to have the same impact because you're doing it in a way that just doesn't feel or seem right. Just like ages ago, we talked about the need for empathy. When you're talking about what you've got to offer, don't just go sell, 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 because people go, ooh, that's a bit much. We've kind of got past that hump now. The world's feeling a little bit more comfortable in its weirdness, but that means that wherever you were planning, now's the time that you have to unleash it on a not sure what's going on, but very interesting to see where we go next kind of world.
That's correct. So we got started exactly about 2 or 3 days after the lockdown everywhere was declared. And we said, well, what are we going to do? We didn't really know. So we came up with this idea of having this show, which was not going to be on delivering content, because suddenly everybody was doing free webinars trying to help, and everybody was doing the free Zoom calls and that kind of thing. And we said to ourselves, well, we have to reinvent ourselves. We have to do something a little bit different. What can we do? Why don't we do a show where we can talk about the news, have a laugh, deliver some great content? And we didn't really know exactly how we were going to be doing this. And this, I think, was the most important thing. So more than anything, we took action. I mean, there's right now you can see here on screen, really interesting chart where they talk about Agile and how using the Agile system, you will be able to reinvent yourself and also reinvent the future for your customers. And this is exactly the kind of thing that we did, didn't we, Dave?
Absolutely. And one thing I would like to add, which is very important, is momentum. You have to start the ball rolling somehow. How many people do you remember talking about the new normal or talking about waiting for things to go back to normal? Most speakers are like that. And now most speakers are realizing we're getting into busy season and there is no season. So they're scrambling to try and get some kind of audience in a new world. But what we did is we decided that we'd just basically jump and grow wings on the way down. We weren't sure where things were going to go, but at least if we created something, we could move it in a different direction, but at least we had something to move. And that's kind of key to all this. So if we look back hundreds of years ago, the Bard, the one guy who's seen as the greatest playwright of all time, William Shakespeare, was in lockdown hundreds of years ago with the plague. So what did he do? He wrote King Lear, one of the greatest plays of all time. Why would he do that? Well, again, he's a creative guy. What's he waiting for? Do what you do best. And that's key to what we're going to be sharing with you in today's episode.
Imperfect action is exactly what is going to help you the most. And we're going to give you the exact blueprint that you will need from right now and beyond to get oversubscribed, which actually is one of the books that really impacted me the most in 2020. I mean, I got to read it. Daniel Priestley, Oversubscribed, fantastic book. We're going to be talking a little bit more about that. But there's also another great book that you and I, Dave, read, well, not together, but we were just constantly talking about while we were preparing for everything that we did this year. So possibly you can tell them a little bit about it.
Yeah, it's a key person of influence. And we talked about this back end of last year before we had our actual TV show. And this book is all about how to define how you can really make an impact in your market for being the go-to person. Now, Daniel Priestley is a brilliant tactician and strategist when it comes to marketing and creating businesses. Multi-millionaire, started many companies, works with a lot of Fortune 500 organizations as well. But his books are really riveting because as you read them, it suddenly reveals a ton of things that you've been leaving behind or leaving on the table or ignoring or thinking they belong to somebody else. But you need them all to come together to be effective. So when we look at the key person of influence, there's 5 areas that you need to address. And Daniel Priestley calls them the 5 Ps. Should we go through them?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we first of all have the pitch, which was one of the ones that we were talking about all the time because, I mean, I hate that word. Honestly, I mean, I'm a baseball player and I love the pitch when they're going to pitch with the ball to bat. But if they're going to be trying to sell me something, I hate it. So that was one of those things that we have that we were debatable. Then we have the publish. And this one is a little bit confusing for people because most people, what they do, most speakers, most experts, most influencers, what they do is they want to print a book. But it's not about printing a book. That is what most people do wrong because, of course, that is just an important thing. Yeah, sure, you can have the book, but until you have the platform, and this is something that we're going to be covering in a moment, that's not going to really make too much sense. What are the other 3, Dave?
Well, we'll go back over them to put our own spin on what they should be seen as in a post-COVID world. The other 3 are product, creating that product to get out to the market, profile, who are you and why should people deal with you, and partnerships. Who can you get who has what you need and you have what they need to join functions together and create a bigger whole unit when you get together and make a joint venture. So those are the 5 areas we discussed: pitch, publish, product, profile, and partnership. But how do they fit in to a post-COVID world? Should we go back to the beginning again?
Absolutely. I think, I mean, these elements were riveting, but, you know, we very honestly, and not that English is my second language, but I had to read some of those chapters a couple of times because, you know, I mean, even though I was understanding exactly what Daniel Priestley was saying, it was just not, I mean, the message was not getting through because there was some conflict in some of the wording that he uses because, of course, he's trying to fit it more than anything to anybody's business model. But that was my own perception. And in order for us to do that, we said, well, you know, I can see this working. So why don't we adapt it to our own business model and then try to also help other people understand exactly what we were trying to do. So what we came along with, based on those 5 steps, What we tried to do was just create our own version of those steps that made sense to us, that are going to possibly make a lot of sense to you. And this is what we're going to be sharing. So let's start with number one. What is number one, Dave?
Okay, now bearing in mind that we see it that not everybody wants to be a speaker, but in a world where marketing comes through video, 80% of video, 80% of the internet is actually video. So whether you're speaking on stage or creating videos out to market your business, you are still going to be communicating as a kind of speaker regardless. So it still has an impact for you. So number one is pitch. Now, that could be your signature story, your signature talk. It could be your signature show, your TV show, or it could be a line that you use in an elevator all the time to tell people exactly who you are and what you do. And they are created and they are practiced, but they're defined by you. So when, for instance, you see Les Brown saying, "You've got to be hungry." Well, the reason he says that is because it resonates with people and it's his signature message. Same as Steve Jobs when he talks about, I'm trying to remember what stay curious. What was Steve Jobs' big one? Do things differently.
Do things differently. Yeah.
So whenever you hear them, you think differently. That was it. Think differently. Whenever you hear them, you know who they belong to. So your pitch has to be assigned to you. It's got to be unique, like you are. It's got to be understandable, but you also want to have something that drives people to take a call to action. So it doesn't just sit there and you go, "Oh, that's nice," like a bunch of flowers. You go, "You know what? You're right. That's something I really want to do." With that, you create success stories and they become your own brand. So your success stories are the people that you create that are out there doing stuff and what they do. So ultimately, the whole thing, it becomes part of your pitch. Whether you're out there saying it yourself, or other people who've worked with you are out there selling their story, but you can say, "They're my people." Yeah. So what effectively happens in this big chain of this impact, like dropping a stone into a pool of water with the ripples, anyone can see what it says on the tin. And that what it says on the tin is exactly what you deliver. And that's your pitch.
Yeah, and that's I think that's one of those things that we have to overcome. It's not about selling; it's about people. It's like about making people understand exactly what you're all about, what value added you can actually put together for them. And that is one of the reasons why Dave and I mean, this is something that I think you're going to find very interesting. Very soon, we are going to be doing a challenge where we're going to actually run you through the 5 steps so that you can actually get your whole process, your entire blueprint together, and you can just sign up here. You can just sign up here on the link, which is just appearing right now, just underneath. But it's going to be very, very interesting. So let's go with number 2. Number 2 is going to be about developing your platform, and this for us was, I think, super interesting thing, because when we started here, even though we have a lot of followers in Facebook and we have followers in Twitter, and I mean, you Dave, have a lot more than me in LinkedIn. We have a lot of followers, but followers is not a platform. A platform is a place where people are really looking at you and just making sure that they are absorbing and taking as much value as from yourself. So what we started realizing was that the best value proposition platform that there is right now in the virtual world is YouTube. Because in YouTube, I mean, your videos, I mean, it is not ephemeral. When you create a video, that video is going to stay there for a long, long time. And if you do the work correctly, as we are doing right now, people are going to start searching for you and they're going to start listening to you. And it's a complete different story. So the moment that you start building your platform, what happens is that you can sell every single thing you want. And that's when you actually, for example, start creating your book and start doing other things. So the platform, it's also incredibly, incredibly important.
So when you think about that, the best business model we found for this is ultimately creating your TV show, which spills into your podcast, which spills into your social media, which spills into a transcription that could be your blog. And with that, there's a number of different things that you can use in your video library, but it also, again, becomes your platform and people can find you easily.
Yeah, exactly. So if we go then to the next step, which is going to be productize your value or create your products. this is a very interesting thing because sure, previously people used to say, well, I'm going to do a course and they're going to sell you a course. Right now, the world is oversaturated with courses. But that gives us a very interesting opportunity because we can sell our services, we can sell our consulting, we can sell all sorts of different things if you understand what's exactly the value proposition that you're going to be creating. And yes, of course, I mean, it might be one of those services, having a course. I'm not saying that it's not a good idea, but you need to understand exactly where your target market is at that specific point. So far you need to have a signature story. Then you need to have, you have to be able to develop your own platform where people are going to follow you more than anything, not that follow you like followers in Twitter, but more than anything, where are people going to be learning about who you are and what you're doing, as we learned about the YouTubers. And the next one is developing your platform. Now, we're going to get into the next step, Dave, which is what?
It's your personal branding. It's your profile. It's the fact that you have to distinguish yourself from everybody else playing the same game. One thing that's changed is location means very little nowadays, because when you're in a world that's in lockdown, you're talking and broadcasting and sharing stuff online to potentially 7+ billion people. So therefore, you really have to make sure that you stand out amongst all the searches. It was difficult before to get ranked in Google. It's even harder now because there's so many people doing what you do. With that, you've got to be able to create something that's really effective and really you. But when you add new technology, you've got augmented reality and you've got artificial intelligence, you've got holograms, you've got so much extra tech for your branding that's a whole new area to embrace and understand. Then you have to position yourself so you're seen as elevated. You have to be seen as a voice of your industry, an industry icon that people go, oh yeah, you should talk to this guy or talk to this girl. She knows exactly what she's talking about because here's the evidence. And they should just be able to Google you and find the evidence there waiting. It's like having a magic wand where, like Harry Potter, you go bing and your profile raises and it connects to lots of other stuff. And ultimately, what it comes down to is it's your X factor, and you might not even know it, but what is it that you perceive that you're brilliant at? Other people will perceive that you're brilliant at, and people would want to buy exclusively from you. That's the profile that you want to be able to build. And if you don't know what to sell yet, it doesn't matter. They should still see you as the expert in that field.
It's not going to be perfect on the first time, and that's one of the things that we learned immediately the moment that we went on lockdown. I mean, we said, well, we have a branding portfolio. We have a one sheet, if you want, in the speaker's language, which right now is to a certain extent irrelevant because right now, I mean, we cannot provide so many of the services that we were doing. So once again, we took that specific parameters on how to create our new brand. We've rebranded ourselves. We made exactly what we needed to do to get started, and right now we're already reaping the benefits. Right now, I mean, we have managed to become the most liked banter podcast in Spotify. We have done a number of different things, but it is because we have been applying our brand. And this is a very cool video on you understanding branding. Have a look.
What is branding, Marty?
Yeah, so let's start with what branding isn't.
Okay.
It's because it's not a lot of things people say it is. It's not a logo.
Okay.
A logo is a very useful tool for a business, but it's not the brand. It's a symbol for the brand. A brand is not a product. So when people talk about this brand, buying this brand or that brand, they're really talking about buying one product or another product. The brand is not that. People say the brand is a promise the company makes to customers, and there's some truth in that.
Yep.
I mean, it does end up acting as a promise, but that's not what it is either. Advertising people like to say, well, it's the sum of all the impressions that a company makes on an audience.
Yeah.
Well, if you're trying to sell a lot of impressions, I can see where that might be useful to you, but from a business's point of view, why do they want that? Right. So, and how does that help
Self-serving definition
creative
there.
people understand what they're doing?
Right.
So, none of those things are really what branding is. A brand is a result. It's a customer's gut feeling about a product, a service, or a company. It ends up in their heads, in their hearts. They take whatever raw materials you throw at them and they make something out of it. But they're making it, they're creating it. And so in a sense, when you create a brand, you're not creating one brand, you're creating millions of brands, like however many customers or people in your audience.
Oh.
Each one has a different brand of you. So a brand is like a reputation, right? So it's your business reputation, and everyone's going to be a little bit different about what that reputation is. And that's okay, as long as you've got it corralled mostly where you want it and that it's beneficial to the company.
So that's a great video. Remember, the difference is when you talk about brand, we've always known brands to be corporates, Coca-Cola and Apple and all the rest of it. The brand that people want to know now is your name. Your name on social media carries the weight of a brand, whether you like it or not. So you should build it around you, because that's what people will be looking for, even if you don't want them to. They'll look at your brand and decide whether you've made an effort or not. The fifth one we want to look at now is ultimately your partnership. So as we see alliances, the alliances, the sponsors, the joint ventures, all the people who like what you do, love what you do, and want to be connected to you, to either support you, to contribute, or get you to contribute to them, but they'll pay for that to happen. But it's got a number of different levels. So for instance, the business B2B is very simple. You make a business deal with somebody, they have something you want, usually money, you have something they want, usually content, done deal. But you also have the fans, the followers, the subscribers. These are the people who love what you do, but it tends to be that they're watching it and learning and watching and learning. They will give you their audience, they will give you their time, they'll even give you their money as long as you give them the insights and also give them as much time as you can afford. And that's why it's really interesting when you look at your micro-influencer. So maybe you've got 5,000 to 100,000 followers, fans, and subscribers. Might seem like a big number, but it's nothing compared to the 8 million, 10 million that the huge influencers have. But the difference is you can answer every inquiry. You can see what people are up to when they're asking questions, and they feel that you're with them.
What I found very interesting on the Key Person of Influence book was that David Priestley was saying, well, you cannot really get the partnerships unless you have the first 4 steps. And I think it's completely true, because what happens is, for example, right now, I cannot compare my middle to someone end product. So for example, 2 days ago, I was talking with a YouTuber that has over 10 million subscribers. Now, I have a couple of thousand subscribers. Am I at his level? No. I am not comparing myself to him. However, he's looking at the kind of profile, he's looking at the kind of products, he's looking at the kind of signature story that I have, he's looking at the kind of platform that I am building. And he suddenly says, well, you know, there's potential here. I'm happy to talk to him. Now, if I wouldn't have those 4 steps prior, he wouldn't have even looked at me. And that is one of the important things that we need to take into consideration. So that's why the last part, getting your sponsors, your alliances, it will work, but you cannot have them until you have the first 4 steps.
So to put that in perspective, it might not be that you're talking to a YouTuber. It might be somebody who turns around and says, I really like your podcast, or I like your TV show. I want to invest some money into it. And you're thinking, well, why would they want to invest some money? Or why won't they invest money into it? They have to also look at it and say, well, I don't know how to do what you do. If I was to go and if I paid $10,000 into you to sponsor you so you carry my brand everywhere, would I be able to create from scratch a podcast like yours that I would own for $10,000? I'd have to go to agencies. I'd have to hire a presenter. We'd have to brainstorm. Yours is ready made. I can just write a check and go do what I do, and you start carrying my name out to your audience and beyond. And that's why the leveraging audiences, and that's why those alliances and partnerships are so crucial.
That is exactly correct. Now, those are the 5 steps. And once again, Dave and I are going to put together a challenge, which is going to be a 5-day challenge where we're going to be running on every day. We're going to be talking about each and every one of these steps so that you will be able to do this. And if you want to sign up for the challenge, please just make sure to go to this link, which is below there. And then what we need to talk about, because now we covered in our own translation or interpretation of Daniel Priestley's book, we have to talk about the second book, which I thought for me was incredibly interesting throughout this year. And once again, I mean, I'm very grateful to Daniel, because he's been very grateful in his group. He always talks to you and you know, has interactions. So he's a big influencer, a very well-known person, and in his personal group in Facebook, he really interacts with you and whatever, which is also another very important point. One of the things that it used to be in the past was that you needed to be the off-standing guru that nobody could touch. Right now, one of the things which is incredibly important is that you need to be in touch with your audience. I mean, try to find a way how you can interact with them. I mean, you're very good in doing it in LinkedIn. I mean, every time that you go into your show, I am amazed that you managed to answer every single one of the comments. And I mean, that shows that you care. And right now, going back to the empathy, I think that's one of the most important parts.
It's definitely important, because it's like years and years ago, you would bring out a product and people would just buy it and they'd go away, but open the box and try and do it themselves. Now it's either done with them or done for them. And so part of that process is they have to feel that you will be with them, holding their hand all the way through the process to get the whole thing finished. And we're looking at the evidence of that all the way through the things that you're doing. So there's a couple of books we're going to look at now. There's Oversubscribed, and there's one which we won't touch on this particular show, which is 24 Assets, which is his latest book. Let's concentrate on Oversubscribed and how you create that. So what's the answer? What's the solution to Oversubscribed, Ernesto?
Well, I think the most important thing is that you need to have a strategy. That's the first point. You need to figure out what your strategy is going to be so that you will get people lining up to do business with you. He shares a set of numbers, which I think it's very important. And in this set of numbers, the moment that you understand that concept of the numbers that he shares, you're going to start saying, now I'm understanding exactly what I've been doing wrong and why am I not oversubscribed. So possibly you can tell them about those numbers, Dave.
Absolutely. So make a note of these numbers because they're super important. The first set of numbers, and it's going to seem like a puzzle or a formula, but they're amongst the most important influencer formulas you'll ever have, is 7, 11, and 4. Now, why are these important? Well, this is the number blueprint for being able to get people to know, like, and trust you. So 7 hours of studying your content, whether it's online or hanging around with you at an event or chatting to you, getting an interaction and a relationship with you. And you've got to have 11 interactions with them. That could be seeing you on social media. It could be bumping into you in a shopping mall. It could be chatting. It could be seeing your stuff turning up. And then there's 4 different locations where you have to be. Now, this worked ultimately, and I've seen it happen with my clients. They show up again and again watching my shows, and I just see them commenting. And then after a while, they say, Dave, I'd like to talk to you, and I'd like to work with you. So in the real world before the internet, this would be going on to events, to meetings, to business groups, to networking, and then bumping into each other, maybe shopping with the family. How are you? Great. And eventually you become close. And in 4 different places, that's when people will then decide that they want to do business with you. So that's the first set of numbers. Do you want me to go to the second set now, Ernesto?
Do that, yes, please.
So we've got the relationship build. The next set of numbers is 50, 12, 10, and 2. Now, this is how you produce sales. 50 leads, 12 appointments, 10 sales presentations, and 2 sales come from that. And these figures are not what I throw out there. These are figures that are seen in the industry, but probably you didn't know about them. So therefore, if you're getting 2 sales out of 50 leads, but you want to get 10 sales, you've got to multiply the amount of leads by 5. And they'll turn up with your 10 sales. What most people do is they're just happy to get a sale, and they go to 10 leads and they try and convert, and then they say it's not working. It was never going to work on 10. It's not a big enough section to practice on. So one thing I will say is when you look at the likes of the 7, 11, and 4, which we had earlier, when you go to a car showroom, if they're trained like the Tesla guys are and like the Porsche guys are, they know that you're not going to buy unless you stay in that place for 7 hours. You're going to stay there for an hour. So they let you play, sit in the car, have a look at this. What do you think of that? What color would you like? You're there for an hour and then you go away. Then you put you on a mailing list. And then you're going to have 11 interactions of different experiences, looking at different sites and so on, with invites back to the showroom. And then they'll get that 7, 11, 4 to work with you.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons why, because now we have gone into a completely virtual world, this is really it's accelerating tremendously, because right now what happens is that you are seeing people more frequently on Zooms. You're getting people, I mean, previously you saw them once and then you didn't really have too much interaction besides email. But right now you see them on a Zoom, you see them on a video, you see them on social media, you see them in several places. So people which are understanding specifically how this works, they are actually getting really oversubscribed, which I think is a great strategy. So now that you know the 5 steps, which are the 5 steps that we told you, now what we need to talk is about the strategy, how to basically promote your customers and show their success, which I think it's just a phenomenal concept. And this is something that I've been advocating. I mean, if you have been to any of my events, one of the things that I hate the most is when speakers go on stage and they start talking me. I am the best, I am the most incredible, I am the most fantastic. It annoys the hell out of me. Now, one of the things that really made big impact in me was indeed, I mean, one of the things that you can do is use the success of your students, use the success of your customers in order to sell your services. I mean, sounds just first grade, but hardly anybody implements it.
And it makes so much sense. And especially if you're working with really high-end customers, because when you start talking about the difference you made to them, people associate that their entire journey from before you met them was still down to you as well. So you get a ton of extra leverage the higher up the chain your customers and clients actually are. And it means that you don't have to sell anything. The more you promote them, the happier they are to talk about who they are. And what it does, it creates in the mind of your potential customers, if that's what he's doing for them, imagine what he's going to do for me. I've got to get into that list. I've got to be one of these exclusive people that gets promoted. I want to be a success story too. Yeah. So you don't have to be part of that whole journey. You just have to mentor it, which is going back to the original thing ages ago, which is the hero's journey. Should we take a look at that?
We humans have always been obsessed with communicating. It's how we turn ideas into the glue that binds us together, into tribes and societies. In oral traditions, an idea spreads from person to person. Everyone briefly owns it, modifies it, and can choose to pass it through social networks or let it die. It's survival of the fittest, and only the most compelling ideas thrive. But the last 100 years of the broadcast era changed all that. Here, audiences became consumers of ideas, not participants in spreading them. Brands and causes with access to broadcast could guarantee attention. It became survival of the richest. Now that the broadcast era is ending, what will come next? With audiences again in charge of what ideas they seek, skip, and pass along, we are entering a time that looks like a digitally empowered version of the oral tradition. The digitoral era. Here, it's survival of the fittest again. And what kind of ideas survive in any oral tradition? Stories. It's time we all became storytellers again. But how? It starts by thinking of your brand itself as a story. Every communication you create is another chapter in an unfolding epic starring you and your audience. On the surface of any story, you'll find characters, settings, conflict. None of these things are placed there by chance. Every visible element of a well-told story is there to illustrate a core truth about the world, a moral of the story. Morals are themselves expressions of values that the storyteller wants to share. Different values create vastly different morals and story surfaces. Joseph Campbell, who studied stories across cultures and millennia, discovered the most universally successful stories, or myths, call audiences to higher human values like community, justice, truth, and self-expression. Campbell also uncovered the hero's journey, a formula for iconic storytelling that has always worked. We still see it everywhere, and it provides huge insights for a story-based brand. An unlikely hero, a powerless outsider, muddles through a broken world. She wants to live out her higher values but feels powerless to do so. Then she meets a mentor who tells her so much more is possible. He gives her a magic gift and calls her to a dangerous adventure of self-discovery. On this adventure, she confronts the evil source of the world's brokenness and seizes a treasure with which she comes back to heal society. Audiences thrill to hear this story again and again. Brands can use this formula to become storytelling masters too. How? Start with the hero. This hero doesn't start out as the insider, the one with the power. She is an outsider to your brand. So she's not you. The hero of your story is your audience. So if you're not the hero, who are you? The mentor. You are the character that reveals more is possible. You work to connect audiences to their deeper values. You teach a core truth, a moral of the story that provides hope to heal a broken world. Stop talking about how great you are and start telling stories about how great your audience can be. And give them a magic gift, something that makes the adventure you are offering seem likely to succeed. A great brand gift has taken good story brands and made them cultural icons. Any brand can become a story brand by finding its relevance in its values, its consistency by building every communication around its moral. It finds resonance in its unique voice as mentor rather than hero, and its differentiator in its gift. But that's the easy part. In the transparent world of the digital era, mythic success will take something more, a commitment to live the higher values you espouse. Those that don't will lose credibility and their stories with it. Brands brave enough to live their values will reach iconic status and light up the digital landscape. They will tell the stories and create the myths that will win the story wars.
And this is one of the things that we use all the time. We have used to create the speaker reels for all our speakers. We first of all start with the story of not you being the hero, but you being the mentor. And by you being the mentor, and this is exactly the same plot that has been used in Star Wars, Lord of the Rings. What else? You possibly have a few more.
Harry Potter. Spider-Man, you name it. Every single way you look at Yoda, or you look at Gandalf, or you look at Dumbledore, their successes are because of the heroes that they bring into the world. Whether it's Frodo, or it's Luke Skywalker, or Harry Potter, their successes is what people find attractive. And at the end of it, you trail it all the way back. Maybe not so much of Dumbledore when you realize that he was actually a dodgy person. But I'm spoiling Harry Potter for you. But that's beside the point.
Yeah, well, so, it's very interesting because this is, I think, the most remarkable thing that you possibly can learn right now. Most people in their sales letters, in their sales material, they always have testimonials, and testimonials are great, don't get me wrong. But testimonials and using your customers' success stories or case studies are a complete different thing. See, for example, we built together Speak in Dubai, Speak Internationally by using Patrick Schredfager as an example of success. I mean, right now on screen you can see a little bit of his reel. That was actually the first reel that we created. Then we created the reel from Joel Bauer, which is of course a big guru on the speaking industry, which you're seeing right now on screen. Then we started creating more reels, and then we created the reel from Dave, which Dave also, I mean, your reel is phenomenal. And then we created the reel from Frank Mulcahy and from Gunther Mueller. And we have been creating a number of different reels. So what happens is that now what we do is, instead of actually showing, well, we are the best, me, just by simply showing the success story of all these big gurus and of all these big speakers, which have generated results through the work that we have done with them, guess what happens? That instantly starts attracting people. So the question to you is, what success stories can you showcase in your business? Because I think this is just a really life-changing suggestion.
And if you can't showcase any, then from now on, your mission is to create them.
Yeah.
That means manufacturing them from people you've already worked with, or from this point on, looking at every potential customer that comes in as somebody you can showcase for future customers to say, I want to be in the same position as those people you just worked with. But key to all this as well, Ernesto, is to actually be remarkable yourself. You have to be creating something really special. What does that break itself down to? What makes somebody remarkable?
Well, you have to be visible. That's a very important thing. If people don't see you, they completely forget that you exist. So that's just a very important thing. You need to be valuable. Every time that they have an interaction with you, be valuable. This is one of those things that I started realizing, and I thought it was incredibly important, is by doing videos like we are doing on a daily basis. I mean, we are committed to do these videos every single time. Some people don't like some of the stuff that we talk about, which is fine. It's okay to be relatively controversial because you're taking a stand, and it's okay to take a stand. And throughout the Toilet Paper Diaries, if you have been following us, we have taken a stand. Now, that works because, first of all, we're visible. Second, we are also we are providing some value. We are possibly not being liked by everybody, but we're taking a stand and we are being noteworthy, which I think it's important. I mean, people have already taken notice of us, and it's so interesting because, of course, we have seen so many people that are trying to emulate what we are doing. And as Picasso used to say, when people are copying you, that's the sincerest way of flattery.
Absolutely. I think you said it faster than you did, but I get exactly where you're coming from.
I was translating from Spanish to English, so that's why.
Well, it worked. We both got there. So with that, when you're creating it, you need to make sure that the stuff that you do is really remarkable. With the stuff that we've done with the TV shows, the Toilet Paper Diaries and the podcasts and all the rest of it, it's true to say that not everybody likes what it is that we do, but they respect what we do. And you can tell whether people value you or not, because when they do connect with you, they say this phrase, I know you're busy. And that's a telltale that they understand that you are worth more than their actual time. So that's why they're hoping you will donate some time to help them with the issue, with the conversation, or the thing that they're working towards. So that's what you want to hear back from people. I know you're busy, so do you mind if I? And that means they value you.
Yeah, exactly.
So with that, we've got some other values that people really need to have, and some other steps that they need to take and skills they need to learn. Shall we share them with everybody, Ernesto?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think throughout the pandemic, we have been really implementing, eating a lot. I mean, I could see right now, we promised ourselves that we were going to be losing weight, but we didn't. So we are basically really busy in what we were doing. You have your candies there.
As many M&Ms as you can get in a jar, and it gets refilled daily.
But anyway, that's just besides the point. But we have been very innovative. I think that's one of the things that you need to take into consideration. What can you do that it's already there? And you don't have to reinvent the wheel. I mean, everybody's doing Zooms. But then we said, well, how can we take Zoom into the next level? We started searching for platforms. We started searching for all sorts of different ways of doing it. And the result is what you're watching right now on screen. Then we started talking about deal making, trying to figure out how the deals we could be making in these exact circumstances, and we started creating new stuff. But the magic of all of that was done by, what did we started saying, Dave, so that we can actually start telling everybody what we were doing?
Well, you have to create stories. Storytelling is like a martial art of business, and it's one of the most sought after skills that people want. So why is storytelling so important? Well, because it lights up different parts of your brain, receptors that remember the story much more than the facts, because we've grown up from very small to be told stories when we go to bed. Fairy stories, religious stories, stories about things that happen in business or things that happen to friends. And what happens is, because you feel an emotional engagement, it embeds, and you're able to then repeat it back to people with your own spin on top of it. So let's put this into perspective. If you turn around to a client and said, last year, we managed to double our figures, we managed to reach into 4 new territories, and we also managed to grow our spend on advertising by 5 times because of the success we've had so far. People go, well, that's really good. But if you turn around and say, last year, let me tell you about one of the clients that started working with us. This guy had a car dealership. So we went and we had a look around. We realized there was a couple of things that he was missing. So we started working on that with him. He's called John. He's actually from America, but he's living in the UK. And he felt like a bit of a fish out of water. But when we started introducing him to people, his business grew. Now, let me tell you what happened next. Now, suddenly you start telling the story. You can get the same figures, the same facts applied to John, but everybody will remember that. And they'll identify with John to see what you could do for them. That's why the storytelling element is so crucial. And it might seem like flippancy to some people, but it's a really powerful way of building bridges between people who don't normally play together, and also being somebody that people love to listen to, because it reminds us subconsciously of our parents or people we knew when we were growing up who made us feel comfortable when they shared stories with us.
Yeah, and that takes us to the next one, which is through stories and through example and through the right profile and everything, you start becoming a leader. And this was really interesting for us. Everybody was confused. And I mean, I remember Tony Robbins used to say, well, you know, in a moment of confusion, the one that has the most certainty is the one that suddenly assumed the position of leadership. And this is exactly what happened. I mean, it's not that we really did know exactly what we were doing, but we took it with certainty and we started leading. And right now we know that we are leading the path on what we are doing, because nobody's doing the kind of interactivity and the kind of things that we are doing. So that's just a very important thing, which then of course goes to the next step, which is what, Dave?
Well, when you talk about leadership, you've also got to look at who are you leading. Now, leadership is all about being able to move forward. It doesn't always mean you're bringing a team with you, but sometimes the team will follow you regardless because of the direction you're taking. So the next step and the next skill is team building, your ability to create a tribe, people who will follow you and they resonate with you and they love the values and the mission that you're pulling together. These could be from all around the planet, but they don't have to be people who are in the same kind of industry. They just need to be able to resonate and enjoy your company. And that's when we talk about micro-influencers. You don't have to have 1 million followers. You can easily monetize 1,000 for the rest of your life, as long as you leverage that relationship with them so they really will follow you anywhere. And we've seen that recently with once you've got a base, if that base really loves you, they love everything that you do, then that's all you need to be able to move forward. So next we refer to what we talked about before, which is partnering. What do you say about that?
Yeah, well, on partnering, one of the most important things that you can think about is you're going to have to start looking for people in most cases, if you can, which are already accomplishing things that you are not accomplishing right now. So, for example, I mean, I look normally, if I want to partner with somebody, I look for somebody which is has another value proposition that I have, which is already having success. Now, the way that I approach them is I don't tell them, well, you know, mentor me or do something for me. And I have done this my entire life. What I do is I try to think, what can I offer to them that they will be interested in having? And if you actually twisted that direction, suddenly people start really saying, oh my goodness, yeah, I would like to deal with you. And this is one of those things. I mean, right now, most of the people that I am partnering with are struggling also getting their voice across or getting their message across or getting their brand across through the virtual world. So by them seeing what I am doing, I tell them, well, you know, I will be very interested in partnering with you so that we can have the results together. And it just works like a charm. It's just incredible.
Absolutely. One of the things to remember, this is what we've been driving. We're doing the toilet paper diaries, plus our own businesses. We speak on stage and having an impact, and the stuff Ernesto's been doing with showing people on YouTube, is when you look at the gold rush hundreds of years ago, The rich people were not the people that were panning for gold. The rich people are the ones that were selling the pans. So that's where you've got to look at what you have. And the next stage is refining what it is that you're offering. What is it you're creating? What are you offering? Are you improving it all the time? If it's just a block, the same as everybody else's block, then it's worth very little. But when you chisel it down, you make it into a great statue, or in a piece of coal into a diamond, then you've refined something that's worth it and it's valuable. That's when people partner. That's when people follow. And that's when you feel proud to promote it, because you know it's synonymous with your brand, because when you get it right, it is part of you. Next up is investing. Investing from you and investing from others, and investing time, money, energy, relationships. If you expect it to happen to you, that doesn't happen anymore. In your house, nobody's going to accidentally, like in Harry Potter, when the envelopes blow in from the wind and say, welcome to Hogwarts. That's not going to happen. You have to invest and you have to make it happen yourself.
Yeah, and that just gets us into the last point of today's show, which is going to be systemizing. We have to create a system. And I have to be honest with you that the post moves on that part every single time, because right now I started realizing that the systems that I created some time ago for my passive income are not really working anymore, because of course the technology has now changed. The technology is a lot more it's a lot easier to use, but also you have to become familiar with it again. So that is one of the things that you also need to do. And right now, if you're going to be systemizing, and it is the most challenging part for most people, you have to be open to learn, but systemizing is absolutely critical. So we have covered, Dave, so far. I mean, in this episode, which I think it's a bit of a change of pace of what we have been doing lately. Fortunately, we don't have to talk about politics anymore, elections anymore. We don't have to talk about all these things anymore. Now we can go back and be a little bit more ourselves, unless something really crazy happens.
Well, even if it does happen, I'm going to go la, 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 because I kind of like not worrying about anything that's going on in anybody else's life for a while. If anything, what I want to do is connect with people who are like-minded and show them how to create a world around them that they can win in, not one that's driven by somebody else. I think that's that time where we are right now, in the situation we are right now, your own ecosystem is really important. And make sure that you do register in the opt-in box below us down here. And I realize that at this stage, I'm just pointing at my toilet parts, but there is going to be more there. So as we speak, you can register here, but the wife won't like it. That will be our challenge to you. It's going to involve 5 days. And it's going to involve really innovative ways of growing your business and doing things that you would not have done before, but you can be led by the hand with us showing you how it's done, encompassing everything we've gone through on today's show and sharing with you how you can take to the next level in a post-COVID world. This is your influencer blueprint. Nobody else will deliver it like us, and that's why we're here for you.
Yeah. And just to close the episode, I would like to dedicate this episode. I mean, we have done now 79 episodes. Next week is going to be our 80th episode. Wow. And I want to dedicate this episode to Tony Sia, which sadly passed 2 days ago. He was the CEO and the creator from Zappos. And he was one of the most innovative people in the world. And I had a chance to meet him personally a few times. And he was an amazing, amazing person. So I mean, it's a bit of a deep thought. And of course, I mean, this is dedicated this episode is dedicated to him. But, you know, we do not know how long we're going to be here. Let's make the most out of it. Let's just don't ponder in sadness or in difficulty or whatever. And let's make the best that we can from this situation, because we have no idea how long this is going to last.
We don't, but I can guarantee one thing: however long that you're in lockdown and whatever the world does, you can rely on us with the Toilet Paper Diaries. We'll be right there with you. So I look forward for you to sign up and join us on my toilet parts. And also, I shouldn't even mention the toilet paper diaries, but we'll be with you in the future, holding your hand, but we will wash them and sanitize them, guaranteed, with the toilet paper diaries.
Shay was known as the most unconventional boss in America.
Hello.
Living in a 240 square foot trailer in downtown Las Vegas with his pet alpaca, Marley, just blocks away from Zappos headquarters.
You are definitely different than your typical billionaire CEO.
I care a lot more about experiences than stuff.
His unique business sense on display. In 2009, the Harvard grad sold the online shoe retailer to Amazon for $1.2 billion, but remained on as CEO until this past August. Amazon's Jeff Bezos paying tribute to Shay on Instagram, writing, "Your curiosity, vision, and relentless focus on customers leave an indelible mark." Friends say one goal drove him.
You know, whether it was selling shoes, whether it was rebuilding a city, whether it was tiny houses, he was always following this obsessive thread of making other people happy.
And his family releasing a statement overnight telling us, "We are deeply grateful for the outpouring of love and respect shown in the wake of Tony's passing. We hope to carry on his legacy by spreading the tenets he lived by, finding joy through meaningful life experiences, inspiring and helping others, and most of all, delivering happiness." Michael.
He definitely left his mark, Eva. Thank you so much.